Today I want to talk with you guys a little bit about the shock absorbers on this Pro R that we're building. Our friends over at Shock Therapy have been great supporters of our team and our whole effort here, and so naturally we reached out to them when it came time to build this car, and they gladly jumped in and they're helping us out with the build on this. And I want to talk to you a little bit about what Shock Therapy does and what they're doing over there. I have to say that in our opinion anyway, that the Pro R and the Turbo R cars are probably the most sophisticated and the best riding UTVs out of the box to date. The suspension on the Ultimate models with the dynamic suspension is very sophisticated. It has electronic compression, electronic rebound control, a bunch of different modes that you can set. And like I say, I truly believe that it's probably the best riding car that has ever come to market. So that being said, we went to Shock Therapy, talked to them about what it is that they do to shocks to actually improve on what is already a fantastic thing. So basically, in talking with them, we realized that Polaris builds a car for the masses. They build a car that will work good in every scenario for every rider. But if you fine tune these different parameters just a little tiny bit, you can actually make this car perform great in the scenario that you want it to perform in. So what that means for Shock Therapy is, when Polaris puts springs on a car, they put springs on that it's going to work pretty much for everybody. Every rider is different. Every rider has a different riding style. They're built differently. Obviously, there's riders that are way smaller than me, and some riders that are bigger than me. And weight plays an incredible factor on the ride quality in your car. So the more weight you put in it, the car needs to be sprung differently. It needs to be valved differently. So when you take these shocks to Shock Therapy and you do basically a fine tune or a shock upgrade, they're going to change the springs on your car, and they're not just going to put just a set of springs on there. They are going to quiz you. They're going to ask you how much you weigh, how much your gear weighs, how much your cooler weighs, where you carry your cooler, what tires are on your car, whether you're running 35s or 32s. I mean, there's a big difference in weight there. A lot of different things that they're going to ask you, and with those numbers, they're going to calculate the proper spring, the right set of springs for your car. There's still going to be a dual rate spring, but it's going to be fine-tuned to the weight that you most likely are going to be carrying in your car. Beyond that, they want to know what kind of riding you do, what your riding style is. If you're strictly a trail rider, if you're strictly a dune rider, they're going to take those things into consideration. They're going to make fine-tune adjustments in the valving on this shock to actually make it perform at its very, very best in the conditions that you most likely will be riding in. So that being said, I mean, that is a spring valve upgrade that you get from Shock Therapy. Now, Shock Therapy also does some other very, very cool things to these shocks. We know these cars are not indestructible. These shocks are tough. They're super, super tough. They're big, they're heavy, but the car is heavy too. So one thing that Shock Therapy has done is they've built a new shock fork for the front shock on this Pro R. And what they've done is they've actually added some material at the base of the shock that actually collars the shaft of the shock and creates a lot of lateral stability on those threads. That's the minimum or the minor point on that shock shaft where the threads are at the bottom. This new shaft allows some extra strength down here at the bottom of that shaft. So this new fork will take, I think, anything you can possibly throw at it. So that's one upgrade. So we're not going to have to ever worry about the possibility of breaking a shock shaft. Another thing that is kind of unique to Shock Therapy is their limit strap system. Their limit strap system, primarily, we're going to use it on the front of this car. Primarily, you can use it in the rear also, but the front springs tend to want to, people call it topping out. When a shock tops out, that means it's extended all the way to the end of its travel. And that also puts a lot of stress on your shock shaft, puts a lot of stress on the internal valving and the internal parts of your shock. So by limiting that travel by just a fraction at the very, very full extent of that shock, basically you are you're protecting the internals of your shock a little bit and taking some of that harshness out, you know, when the wheels of the car are actually leaving the ground, which, you know, of course never happens, but that's another thing that they do. They've got a whole line of other accessories. They've got some really cool things here. These are sway bar links, which we're going to install on this car here shortly. And these are, for no other reason, but they're really, really cool. So we're going to put these on there, like I say, just because they're cool. And they're also considerably stronger. So it's unlikely to ever bend or break one of the factory sway bar links, but we'll never ever break one of those. So again, cool factor, and you know, just some added strength where we may or may not need it. But you know what, all in all, we're really excited to get these shock therapy shocks out there. We're headed to the dunes for Camp Razor, and man, we're gonna give this thing a try out, and hope to see you there.